I've been dragged back into idol hell, but this time I didn't expect to find more than just idols. I'm in some kind of hybrid idol/musical theatre hell, and it's called Project SEKAI. In mid-December, I downloaded Colourful stage, knowing little more than Miku is in it. I didn't expect to get completely sucked into another mobile gacha game, but honestly, I've been pleasantly surprised by Project SEKAI. The brain rot is real, but I'm having a good time. I knew pretty much nothing going into this game, other than some comments from people on Twitter. The general consensus I saw was that people going into the game expecting a rhythm gameplay focused experience would likely be disappointed, and that it's more about the story. Coming from playing Project Diva and School Idol Festival, I think it was a good thing I saw those comments, because I probably would have been disappointed by the limited range of songs if I didn't realise it was more about the story. Not knowing what a game's focus is the reason I didn't get into Love Live All-Stars. I went into that expecting a similar experience to Sif, but grew bored when I didn't have enough stamina for the harder songs. In general, I don't like grindy games, and I think the gacha aspect of All-Stars makes it really inaccessible to people with little time for games, or who don't want to put money into microtransactions, but that's for another video. Maybe. That would be a very spiteful video. I was assigned Night Court at 25 o'clock and decided to keep them, and they were my favourite group until I started unlocking other stories. Before I go too deep into the characters though, I want to talk about the gameplay. In general, I think it's fun and a lot more accessible than Sif, but those flick notes drive me insane. I'm not sure what I'm doing wrong, but I can never get my phone to register that I've hit them. I'm also in the middle of the learning curve, where hard songs are getting a little too easy, but I'm not quite good enough to keep up with expert. If this was any other game, I'd probably be bored by now, see All-Stars. But because I'm so compelled by the stories, I'm putting up with playing the same songs over and over to see what happens next. This isn't unheard of. I'm a notorious binge watcher, and when I can't absorb all the content at once, I do lose interest, and forget to go back when said content is available. But the thing with SEKAI is that the content is available. I just have to work for it. Needless to say, I've spent a lot of time on this game over the past month. I have one issue where sometimes notes will chime later than they should, and on songs with lots of notes, or those diamonds in the middle of holds, a bunch of chimes will play all at once. It makes it hard to keep tempo, and I'm not sure if it's because my phone is old or the game can't keep up with itself, but I thought it was worth noting. I'm slowly learning how talent and all that works, and I'm sure once I get those sorted, I'll be getting some decent points in and actually ranking above C on songs. But until then, I just have to suffer. I did recently figure out how to upgrade my cards, and in some ways I prefer this method to Sif, but in others I don't. I'll elaborate. I both appreciate and am sick of having to work to upgrade the cards. I think Sif spoiled me by giving me access to Idolising as soon as I got duplicates, so when I got my first duplicates in SEKAI, I was excited to see what they turned into. It took an obscene amount of weeks for me to upgrade my first card, and while I think it's more interesting to have to work towards stronger abilities, my impatience as a result of playing Sif is starting to show. I've been playing a lot of co-op songs to grind gems, but as I mentioned, I don't like grind-based games, and I'm getting tired. I just want the pretty music cards, please. Alright, now for the juicy parts. The more I unlocked N25's story, the more I got really sick of Mafuyu, which I'll go into later, but it actively pushed me away from unlocking their stories. The Captive Marinette story was an absolute drag for me to get through because I find Mafuyu honestly insufferable. I started unlocking more of Vivid Bad Squad, and while I think they're cool, they got completely derailed from my train of thought when I learned Tsukasa is a trash boy theatre kid. Since contracting Tsukasa Brainworms, I've been pretty much unable to focus on any other story or anything else in my entire life, and it got worse when I learned more about the other 3 Wonder Stage kids. I would literally give my life for them. I've been keeping tier lists of my favourite characters as I progress more through the game, but since I have no interest in unlocking more Leo Need or more Jump, I'm gonna warrant a guess that the list I have now isn't going to change a whole lot. I do enjoy their stories, I'm just not as drawn to the characters as I am with other groups. With that said, I'm going to start at the bottom of the list. Also, for clarity, I'm not ranking the virtual singers, they're all perfect, and if you want my opinions on them, go watch my Characterizing the Vocaloids video. Also, there are spoilers for each story ahead, so if you don't want to hear it, skip to the next chapter of the video. My least favourite character is Mafuyu. I think she's awful and I find her so callous and annoying. I get that she's putting on an act and really feels nothing or whatever, but as it stands, I don't enjoy her story or her personality. I'm not sure if she changes and opens up further down the line, but I think the other 3 N25 members are way more interesting and compelling. I had to skip through the last few chapters of the Captive Marionette story because I couldn't be bothered with Mafuyu. I hate that she's so cruel to the other N25 members, particularly Mizuki and Ina, and I would have been happy if they just left Mafuyu and continued making music without her. At this point, I don't think Mafuyu deserves a redemption arc, considering she's an absolute bitch in the area conversations. I really felt Ina when she snarked at Mafuyu for being difficult and feeling weary of Kanade's trust in her. Kanade deserves better. As a side note, if Mafuyu's story is meant to be an allegory for mental health struggles, I don't think it's done well at all. The idea that she can be quote-unquote saved by a single song is not great and really diminishes the actual struggles of going through therapy or getting assistance for mental illness. As it stands, Mafuyu seems to be mean for the sake of being mean, as if she thinks it'll help her feel something, when in reality her situation is pretty grim and shouldn't be played as Kanade will eventually write a song that fixes all Mafuyu's problems. I hope both characters are treated better than that. Next is Shiho. I find her really abrasive, and while I don't know her motivations yet, it feels like she holds everyone to her own standards and won't respect them until they impress her. I get this both in the Leo Need story and the area conversations. I don't tend to like characters like this, so it'll take some drastic changes to get me to change her spot. I do hope she mellows out and is a bit kinder to the other Leo Need members and her sister, but for now, I think she's just mean. While I can appreciate that she goes easy on Saki, the way she treats Ichika really rubs me the wrong way. Next up is Honami. So far, I haven't seen anything of her that really cements who she is or what her personality is, other than avoiding anything she doesn't want to deal with, which in this context means Ichika and Saki. I do respect that she plays drums because she thinks they're the coolest instrument, but other than that, she seems underdeveloped and bland. I think she has a lot of potential to be interesting, and I do hope she becomes more engaging later in the story. I have similar feelings about Minori in that she's kind of bland. I like that she's driven and motivated, but I've seen this song and dance so many times, I get bored of characters like this very quickly. She's put above Honami because she's actually done something in the story instead of avoiding being a part of it. Next is Airi. I think she has potential to move higher on the list, but as it stands, I think she's jaded and spiteful. I do respect that the More Jump idols tried to retire and Airi was a victim of circumstance when she was dragged into helping Minori, but characters that are mean for the sake of being mean don't gel with me. It feels criminal to have her this low after learning she's voiced by Furihara Ai. At least she did help Minori in the end, and I like her dynamic with Shizuku. Speaking of Shizuku, I think she's very sweet, but she hasn't really stood out to me yet. I like the archetype of gentle, mature characters, and her design is gorgeous, but I want to see more of her without the other characters around, particularly Shiho. Pretty much all of her characteristics have shown through in her area conversations with Shiho or when Shiho talks about her to others. That's not great. I will say I like that she's bad with technology and I think it's a great trait for her to have, but she's also a victim of circumstance and I honestly just feel bad for her. Knowing she was dragged into being an idol by a friend and was too passive to do anything about it makes me really question her role in the story and whether or not she actively chooses to become a part of More Jump. Next is Ichika. I don't mind her, and once again, I really think she's a victim of circumstance. She's barely been able to get a word in, so I'd like to see what she's got to say when someone actually listens. Her interactions with Saki have been really compelling, and I like the chemistry the two have. Despite Ichika being passive, I have enjoyed her character so far, and I'm really hoping she comes out of her shell more as the story progresses. Next up is Haruka. She's my favourite of the more jump idols because she just wants to live her life. She's made it abundantly clear that she's done being an idol, but much like me and gacha games who have both been dragged back to hell by cute girls, I am enjoying her role in the story, and I'm keen to see how she ties into the stories of the other characters. Particularly Anne's, and her part in the Singing in Sync story has me very intrigued. She ranks above the others because she's the most relatable. Akito is next, and while he's not my favourite guy, I am enjoying his role in the story. I think he's a bit of an ass, and where I'm at in the story paints him as a pretty abrasive guy. That said, I think the novelty of boy idols really appeal to me, which is why I'm ranking him so high. I think his dynamic with Toya is great, and I want to know why he's such a dick to Tsukasa. I also want to know why he treats Anne like shit, even after teaming up with her. I get they have a rivalry going, but it doesn't feel like a friendly rivalry. On the topic of boys, Toya moved up in the ranks when I found out he played violin and has a soft spot for Tsukasa. Originally he didn't stand out to me at all, but through area conversations and cover art, I put the pieces together. I'm super excited to find out more about him and his backstory, but I also want to see him open up more. It seems like he's a bit of a dork, and I love that for him. Next up is Saki, who originally placed a lot higher. I think she's super cute, and she's the kind of character I gravitate to, and the only reason she's moved down is because I've started liking other characters more. I still really like her and her story, and I think she's a great plot driver for Leonid. I appreciate that she's trying to be independent and is constantly telling others not to worry about her, like she's not using her health as a way to be the centre of attention or to have others cater to her. I feel like other characters would do that, but I really like how she's been written as motivated, involved, and how she's trying to make up for lost time. Next is Kanade. I really like Kanade, and I want to know more about her backstory. I like that she's the focus of N25's story, and her motivations, while a little weak narratively, are strong within her characterization. In that regard, I feel like she's a little one note, and I'm hoping we get to see more of Kanade being herself, not just as a composer. She feels like the kind of character that had their job written before their personality, and while that can work, I think a lot of Kanade's characterization is left to what she does rather than who she is. I would love to know more about who she is. Next is Kohane, and I really didn't expect to like her as much as I do. I think she's really sweet, and seeing her confidence grow the more she performs with Anne is one of my favourite parts of the Vivid Bad Squad story. There's an impulsive side to her that I think really works in the story's favour and doesn't offset her character. She's a good balance to the squad, and I don't want to see her get hurt. Seeing her upset and flustered in the Singing in Sync event was heartbreaking, and I don't want to go through that again. The story will probably make me go through that again. Next up is Anne, and this shouldn't surprise anyone. Anne's fantastic, and I've been really enjoying her character so far. She's so fun and driven, and while I think being aspirational is a great character trait, I do want to know what her plan is if she reaches her goal. I also like how she interacts with the world. She's very talented, but she hasn't become jaded as a result. Compliments don't go straight to her ego, and I really appreciate that in a protagonist. It means she's not annoying or insufferable as part of the story. It also means there's room for the other characters, which she so openly allows into the plot in a way that the other stories don't really have. I love level-headed protagonists that aren't against sharing the spotlight, as much as I love Tsukasa. Next we have Nene. Nene's moved up from 9th place since I learned Wonderlands Showtime are all theatre kids. Although I've disliked gimmicks like Robo Nene in the past, see my thoughts on Rina Chinoji, I think having Rui as such an active part of her story and someone who genuinely wants to help her makes that aspect of her a lot easier to digest. That, and the fact that it's clear through her cards, promotional stuff and event stories that she obviously moves past the need for Robo Nene at some point. Robo Nene aside, I really like Nene and I want to see more of her story. Her part in the Wonder Halloween event was really cute, and it's great to see her be such an active support to Rui. The dynamic those two have is really sweet, and the childhood friend trope works really well here. I want to see how Nene goes in SEKAI and how she becomes okay with performing on stage, or whether she's only able to perform on the SEKAI stage for the fake audience. I also really love that she thinks Tsukasa is an idiot. I love that for both of them. Moving into my top 5, it's Emu. What an absolute cutie! Initially I thought I'd be really annoyed by her, but I think she's super sweet and I want to see her dreams come true. I was super afraid she'd fit into the Nico and Kasumi category, but I'm honestly so glad she doesn't. Some of Tsukasa's menu line about Emu making fake snow out of styrofoam just makes me love her even more, and I've been loving her role in the sports festival event. Her interactions with the other characters have been so nice to see, and I love how she placed her phone in a tree so Miku could watch her race. She's so full of love and is honestly contagious. In 4th place is Ina. Ina is such an excellent character. My favourite interaction with her so far was with Akito, and I didn't realise they were siblings until he appeared in N25's story. While I typically don't gravitate towards abrasive characters, I find Ina's ire to be balanced with her positive traits, since she's not spiteful all the time and has a really melancholic aura about her. I really feel for Ina and relate to her a lot on feeling inferior and jealous, but still being proud of what she creates. She's the kind of character I just want to protect, you know? I want to see her succeed, and part of the reason I like her so much is the mutual feeling of disappointment when illustrations you've put a lot of effort into don't perform well. Same hat, Ina. 3rd place goes to Rui. I originally had him a lot lower because I was basing my judgment purely on his design. I hadn't met him in the story yet. Now that I've read a lot of the Wonderland story and the Wonder Halloween event, he deserves 3rd place. Being a theatre kid, inventor, and a giant dork is a triple threat that goes straight to my heart. I so badly want to know more about what happened in middle school to make him so sad, but it's really heartwarming to see him thriving on the Wonder stage. It's so clear he has a lot of passion, and he's the kind of character I gravitate to, not only because he's a big dweeb, but because he stands out so much in design and personality. The way he messed with Tsukasa was an excellent way to bring him into the story as a mischief maker and a foil to Tsukasa, but the story beats from Wonder Halloween had me feeling emotions. That is a lot more than I can say for the stories in Sif. 2nd goes to the big idiot himself, Tsukasa. He hits the big 3 Tensei bait targets: theatre kid, big dork, trash boy. Originally, I saw a lot of posting about this blonde dude online, but didn't have any context on who he is. But when I started getting info from the early Leonie chapters, I knew I was in for it. His interactions with Saki are really sweet, but the fact that he forgot he's doing all this for her is actually heartbreaking. The way Miku and Kaito reacted when they realized he doesn't remember grabbed my heartstrings and ripped him out of my chest. I can't even comment on what makes him my 2nd favourite character other than calling him a trash boy. There's nothing else, that's it. They've got my number and they know what to do with it. I'm so painfully excited to unlock more of the Wonderland Showtime story that playing the same songs over and over isn't such a bad chore. I'll do it for Tsukasa. Most of my SEKAI brainworms can be attributed to this fool. I want to throw him at a wall. Finally, my absolute top tier character is Mizuki. I was really drawn to them after their reveal in the N25 story, but after learning they're a fashionista, animator, and use neutral pronouns, they were cemented as my favourite. I relate to Mizuki in a lot of the same ways I relate to Ina, particularly on the just wanting to be themselves front. Learning that they like to modify clothes and have a strong sense of fashion was another big draw for me, along with the fact that they're voiced by Sato Hinata. I knew there was at least one crossover with Love Live VAs, but I did not expect this. I am here for it. Like, all the things that would make me love a character just kept aligning with Mizuki. Episode 9 of N25 story had me feeling so many emotions, and knowing they were friends with Rui and Nene just really cements them as my absolute favourite. Not only did the creators decide to have a gender non-conforming character, they made them really cool and pretty and with a genuinely compelling story that doesn't revolve around their gender. Mizuki just lives their life and is represented in such a natural and seamless way that I can't help but feel so grateful to the writers for this blessing. Their cards are gorgeous, their story's well written, they have excellent characterization, and they think Tsukasa is cool. It just doesn't get better than that. Overall, I think the cast is really strong, and although unlocking the stories is taking forever, I'm enjoying the game and am actively coming back to play it. I appreciate that they don't shove their microtransactions into the players' faces as much as other gacha games do, and while they're still there, it's nice to be able to completely ignore them. It took me a few days of playing to figure out where the paid shop is, although I've sworn off buying anything in gacha games. I'm not having another Sif incident. So far, I've found grinding crystals to not be too awful, and I really like that the game doesn't punish you for playing it. One of my biggest gripes with a lot of mobile games is stamina systems, because they actively make you either spend money to keep playing or wait until later to continue. I really appreciate that SEKAI lets you keep playing and that the stamina system is purely for extra bits. I wish more games did that. I am getting to the point where unlocking stories purely by playing hard difficulty songs is becoming a bit of a drag, but the event stories are actively helping with that. Sometimes I'll focus so much energy on unlocking an event story, I won't notice one of the main stories was so close to unlocking and be pleasantly surprised. Over the past few days, I've been full comboing more songs, so I'm pretty confident I'll be able to tackle expert songs soon, but I'm not quite there yet. It took years of playing for me to be able to finish any Sif master song without issue, and I'm hoping my skills there will transfer over in some capacity. One thing I'm kind of miffed about is the spoilers scattered throughout the area conversations. It's a cute feature, but learning ahead of the story I've unlocked hasn't been my favourite thing in the world. I didn't know how Nene became a part of the story, but I saw a conversation with her and Kaito that explained she watched musicals with Rui. I would have loved to learn that organically, but it is what it is. I can see myself spending a lot more time in Project SEKAI. I've only known it for about a month, but I'm already so invested and have spent an excruciating amount of time talking about it to anyone who'll listen. My partner made the unfortunate mistake of asking me how the virtual singers tie into the story, and for the better part of an hour's drive, I didn't shut up. This video might save my need to talk about the game for like a week, but I hope that anyone that sees me appreciates that week of not hearing about it. You're welcome.